look, we're talking, it's really hard if I'm a jerk, and I don't think I am, but if I was, really hard for me to fake being a nice guy for this length of a conversation, right? So, but again, if somebody says this dude is a jerk, well, just watch me on the show, like there's 5,000 examples where you can see me, and brands should do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just be out there, build your brand, be real, don't be a jerk or something else like that, and
Au-
be
Authentic,
be
Authentic.
authentic unless you're a jerk.
unless you're a jerk.
Well,
And yeah, that's it.
you can
I'm
authentically
sitting
be
there,
a jerk, I guess.
right?
All right, so we want to welcome everybody to the NerdBrand podcast. I'm your host, Jason. That's Mitch. That's John. That's Christoph. And I want you, sir, to take a moment to introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself, your passions, what makes you a nerd, anything you'd like. You have the floor for a few minutes if you need that long.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. Just listen to one of your shows on the Super Bowl. Fantastic discussion. Fiverr not using Fiverr people to create their commercial. Unbelievable.
Out
But
there.
anyways, so I guess that's what you said, right? I grew up as a journalist. Learn how to tell stories, share content that people care about, and then slowly, like many journalists or some journalists, moved over into the corporate marketing world. At some point, we started calling that content marketing. And so, which is really very similar to journalism when you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different purpose, but the way you tell the story, the way you interact with people is very, very similar. So I've done that, last decade or so, and always figured out new ways to, stay in front of audiences, engage with people. And back in the day, we didn't have to think about that because here's the print paper, read it. It comes every morning, and then we try to do other things. But today, of course, we have everything. People still read books, people still read emails, people still read tweets, people still listen to podcasts, people still watch live streams. I just did a live stream yesterday that actually was a webinar, except we live streamed it to like 6 channels or 5 channels or some whatever it was. So always looking for that way to connect with people, connect with the audiences in all the relevant channels. And it's not just writing, it's not just one thing or another, it's really everything in concert. So that's kind of what I always love to focus on, staying relevant, learning new things, and going from there.
Yeah, yeah. I think we talk about that a lot. Like when you try anything in this arena of trying to get your brand out there, raise awareness, marketing, whatever. Mitch uses the word linkage, and how everything has got to be together and work. Holistic is a term we've also used as well to try to get folks to understand it's not just one thing. You've got to consider many things in this world with technology and broadcasts and everything. So anyways, but yeah, thanks for there's the intro for you. And today's show is about live streaming and marketing. So I did send everybody some numbers about that I pulled from the site. We can bring that up and share that with our audience if you like. Sir, you probably know more about live streaming than we do. I know enough to be scary. Let me put it that way. I'm a big fan. I admit I like Kevin Smith and his podcast. I've been back when it was Fat Man and Fat Man on Batman. Now it's Fat Man Beyond because they were worried about some licensing problems. And I started watching when he does his live streaming of his podcast on YouTube. And I believe the app is OSB or something like that that's used. I've seen a lot of folks use that. We'll be testing that and trying that out. I know it doesn't work very well with Zoom for some reason because you need a virtual mic and a virtual camera and all that, and it's just not that easy to hook together. But I kind of wanted to ask you as we get into this later, we've got some segments that we want to bring into light first, but we'll get into all the technology and the things about live streaming and the benefits of that in a minute. But we want to give Mitch some room because it's time for Mitch's brand bit. Did I get it right?
Yeah, give me some room. Spread out. That's right. Mitch's brand bit. Today's brand bit basically comes courtesy of Marketing Week, which is it's a United Kingdom-based site, but they talk branding and marketing. And an interesting article this week said, brands are returning to brand building according to Google. Okay. Google says money's moving back into brand building on its platforms as brands, quote, keep their brands in front of people to stay top of mind. And just some figures, with COVID and everything, a lot of brands kind of, pushed off brand building for the time being and cut back quite a bit. However, Google does say that revenue surged from $37.9 billion in 2019 to $46.2 billion at the end of the fourth quarter in 2020. YouTube accounted for 81% of their fourth quarter sales, up 23% year to year. That tells you it's brand building, but that tells you where it's all going. The fact that a lot of it went into YouTube, which is video, I think is very prescient, given what we're discussing today. One of the experts they quoted said, marketers realize that even if there's a pullback in consumer demand in the short term, they need to keep their brands in front of people to stay top of mind when spending picks back up. So,
yeah. Well, for video, I think as in our industry, we've been telling people like video and content is king. Like we're pretty familiar with those terms and talking to people, but here it is, and I think the pandemic just kind of accelerated that.
From good.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Christoph.
Mitch, what's interesting about what you said there too, with the brand building, I literally just said that yesterday on one of the webinars I was on, and I said, salespeople only care about brand building when nothing comes out at the bottom. You know what I mean? Because brand building is pretty top. So now we're in the stage where all of a sudden sales cares again, and because sales are down, and now we need to build a brand. But the reality is, you can never stop building a brand. It drives me crazy when people. I had a CEO come to me one day and says, "Oh, I don't want to build a brand. I just need some leads." And I said, "Okay, well, who knows you? Like, who are you? You know what I'm saying? Like, they go hand in hand. It's not one or the other."
No.
Yeah, and for us, we do of course, we do a lot of branding and rebranding projects, and we launch the brand, and then there's always that conversation of what now, and we have a lot of clients who, just being open, they kind of drop off, and they don't see the value necessarily of brand management. And although you're done with this rebrand phase, you kind of have to start another one because within 3 to 6 months, because the market is going to change. COVID's gonna impact different things. Competitors are going to enter and exit the market. Like there's this constant flux that your brand is not done. Although we might have a 6-month term on a project, it's not that after 6 months you're finished. That's just a phase. So that's one thing definitely that we pretty much encounter every week, as far as I've heard.
Oh, and Jason, it's like you taught me. I mean, when you're designing a web build, you design in sprints. It's not like you construct it, put it up, throw it out there, and walk away. You're receiving data and information back from your users every moment, and you're taking that information, repurposing it to constantly improve your message and improve your presence. And that's marketing. I mean, that's branding. Branding isn't something you do once and walk away. You're doing it in sprints, and it's a constant communication between you and the marketplace. It never stops. It never should stop.
Yeah, it's iterative design.
But it's because people think about campaigns, right? Everything is a campaign. Like this is, how long does this take? Whatever, a day, a week, whatever. I'll give you an example. When I told people, somebody asked me, "Hey, when did you start writing this book? The Going Life book?" And I said, "Well, I had the idea in January this year, and it's publishing in March." So everybody goes, "Oh my goodness, you wrote a 26,000 word book in a month or whatever." No, I didn't.
Wrote it in 10 years.
All this, what?
That you wrote it in 10 years.
Well, not 10 years, but maybe let's say a year or two, right? Maybe a year, a little over a year. Because really what I did is I wrote blog posts about the topic, and now I'm taking the blog posts and I'm rearranging them. I got different transitions. Some of them don't make any sense anymore. Some are outdated, so I update them. So my point is, because I continuously share stuff around the topic, when I actually decided to write the book, I could just, I don't want to oversimplify. It still takes a lot of work to put it together, but
Mhm.
it's a lot easier than writing it from scratch because I had most of the content, and every time I turn around, I got another chapter. Now I got to write about how to schedule a live stream, how to do this, like new stuff I run into. So let March 10th arrive so I can stop updating it.
Yeah, over the years, I've written thousands of blog posts for different places. And, of course, some of them, because I was an employee there, they've got them now and I can't, like, whatever. If you want to use that, that's fine, but you're not the author. I was. But they kind of, after I left, put their name on it, because that's what happens. But I thought about that too. Like, well, I've got all the things I need. It's kind of like index cards. They're there. I just need to take it and put it all together into one big, like you've done. But I've never done that. I don't know. Missed opportunity for me.
When I say 10 years, there's also the knowledge. Like you said, you've been doing this
Right.
forever and telling stories in different formats, and call it whatever you want, label it corporate
Yeah.
communications, call it content marketing, call it strategic communication, whatever. The knowledge took years and years to accumulate to the point that you could not only just authoritatively write on this stuff, but then know how to distribute it, understand the technology to, actually live the live stream life and all that good stuff. So, just like a brand, you've got to put in, that decade of constant iteration to get to the point where you actually have, maybe a household name or a prime spot on a shelf in the market.
It's very true. And this is one reason why I don't like billing by the hour, because why do you get to pay 15 minutes for something that took me 10 years to learn? That's
Right.
the craziest,
Yeah.
craziest math I've ever heard. And I'm not even good at math.
I struggled with that concept with several, and Mitch knows. I struggled with that concept for a long time, getting people, because they would always ask me, like, how many hours? And I'm like, you're tapping into here and what I know here, not, as Mitch likes to go, not this. If you just
You're not
want
paying
this,
for the.
yeah,
You're
if you
not
want
paying for
this,
hands.
that's Fiverr, Upwork. But if you really want it done well, then you need to sit, talk, and figure that out. That's where experience comes in. That's where, like, and NerdBrand is pretty much like John and I and Mitch. We're all, I don't know, guys. What are we, like 12, 13 years apart? Mitch is the elder. As you can say, so I'm the middle child. So I'm the one with all the problems, I guess. But it's like that gives us a bit of an edge in that diversity of, like, there's tons of stuff that Mitch knows that John and I are not aware of because of his years of experience before digital, than the years I've spent in the web, and then John in marketing. And that's kind of how we've positioned ourselves. I don't know, maybe one day we'll write a book. Maybe the three of us will collaborate and write about something. But I've always been more interested in writing, I think, fan fiction lately than I have been anything else, which is not very productive. Not at all. But that's fine. Maybe one day I'll write a nice Batman story that everybody likes to read. Who knows? Anyways, we've been doing some stuff this week. We've been looking at brands. If you're following us on LinkedIn in particular, or on Facebook, got quite a bit of reaction from the Kia logo. No one liked it, especially when I posted it on my LinkedIn. Everybody was like, nope. One of our strategic partners was like, not a fan.
Jonathan knows what my thoughts were on it. It hit me pretty quickly.
I don't know if you want me to share my screen, Jason. I can.
Yeah, let me get you that.
Got it pulled up.
Yeah, go for it.
It looks like a KN.
KN.
Yeah, it does.
What's interesting is the logo that they came up with, the original logo on the left, that's always been their North American and non-Korean logo. They developed that logo specifically for the Western market. Their original logo that they use at home and other places, and like in Europe, etc., is much more elegant. It looks to me like what they did was they tried to find a happy medium between the more blockish industrial look and weave in a little bit more of a slightly more elegant feel to it. But like I said, Jonathan, I see KN.
Yeah. Anybody here own a Kia or have ever? I know, Mitch, you have.
Mm-hmm. It was good. It was great. I had a 2005 Kia Sorento that went pretty much almost to 200,000 miles before I sold it.
Hmm.
So logos are interesting to me because certainly we're all in marketing, and sometimes we make our money come up with new logos or whatever brand refreshes.
Mm-hmm.
But it depends how important it is, right? So like I don't even know if I have a GM or there's another brand they have. I don't anyway, whatever. One of their brands. I
Mhm.
could care less what their logo is. If I like the car, I'm going to buy the car, you know?
Right.
And the other thing is, I mean, look at my hat, the hat I'm wearing. That's like probably the crappiest logo ever, you know, Washington football team. I mean, it's just a W. I mean, seriously, like you know, I mean, it's a little better what they came out with first, but I'm still wearing it because I have an attachment to the franchise as hard as it's been for them the last 20 years.
Mhm.
But I'm still going to wear it, right? It's not so it's interesting to me. Like some logos matter, some logos people go, whatever, who
Yeah.
cares? I
Yeah.
never
I
look
don't
at
know that
it.
anybody, necessarily, if the product fulfills the need, that they're necessarily, they're not comparing logos when you look at a shelf. It's just that memorability. It does, I think you could make the argument that the logo on the left does feel a little more antiquated, does feel a little bit more like it gives off that perception that Kia has of being kind of bargain bin cheap, not necessarily
Entry level.
reliable. Yeah, which may or may not be true, but that's the perception. And then, they're trying to move as they've introduced more luxury models, although they don't have a luxury line. They've introduced better vehicles over the years. Trying to get away from that perception that they are bargain bin. I think is you can only really do that through a rebrand or some type of brand refresh.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I
we
just think they missed.
well, we can go from a bargain bin example, and I can share this, John, John's got some stuff to talk about. Miller Lights. Let's get into beer. Everybody likes beer anyway, right? Well, I don't. I'll be honest. I'm not a beer drinker. I'm a root beer drinker. But let me share this. This is what, and I'll let John drive and talk about this and tell us about this, John. What you think?
Miller's been struggling. A lot of brands, I think we saw the Super Bowl commercial with Bud Light jumping into the seltzer market, and that whole bandwagon, that beverage market is going wild right now with things like White Claw and all the mainstream brands releasing their seltzer line. Miller seems to be going a little bit of a different direction, going more into digging into their genuine roots, and genuine being their Miller Genuine Draft, kind of it's in the name. But there's a couple stats. Since 2011, Miller has lost more sales volume in the U.S. than any other major beer brand, and the current American market share sits below 1%. So
Wow.
probably
Yikes.
just they used to be, I don't have the stats, but they used to be like top 5 beer brands in terms of
The king of beers.
yeah. So probably an overdue rebrand. Not that they haven't tried. I think we've probably all seen a handful of campaigns that were kind of inconsistent over the years.
Mhm.
I like, I'm not saying I'm a customer. I'm very unlikely to go out and buy it for sure, even if I'm looking for beer. But I really, really like the brand. I like the new identity. I think we talk all the
Go ahead,
time
John.
that red is hard to pull off as a primary brand color. I mean, there's a huge ad on the side of a skyscraper building with a nice big bold headline, and the red really catches your eye. I think they pulled it out of the can. The sun and the eagle kind of used to live in the background if you look at the can closely, and now they've pulled that red sun completely out as the primary brand color. And I think it's an improvement. Brings it kind of modern a little bit, and should stand out in a beer aisle.
So
Yeah.
one of the things that, I mean, but what all of the major brand beers have been facing for, good grief, probably the better part of a decade now, is the fragmentation in the beer market because of microbrews. Microbrews have become what's fashionable, and it's gotten to the point where beer snobs have made it difficult for anybody to want to go pick up a major brand beer off the shelf in a grocery store or in a liquor store. It's almost like peer pressure. If you're not drinking one of these microbrews, which I don't know if you've walked into like a a Liquor Barn, any place like that lately. The number of beers on the shelf is staggering. The number of brands of beers, it's I don't know how these places make money. Given, I mean, there must be an awful lot of people are drinking an awful lot of beer. There's got to be. There's got to be.
Yeah, I think we know.
So
Since
I mean,
the
that
pandemic, liquor sales have like skyrocketed.
right,
Yeah,
right.
people are drinking
But
more at home now.
But see, I mean, that's everywhere, right? I mean, back in the day, it's like the whole TV model. I mean, for everything now, back the Bill Cosby show. I mean, millions and millions of people watched that. It was the most watched show on TV. And then, like, whenever it was, the Big Bang Theory was the most watched and had a fraction of the Bill Cosby show. And it was still, people were like celebrating how successful it was. But when you compare it, I wasn't watching it because I was busy watching, football or hockey or something, or Netflix, or, I mean, seriously, my family of 4 people, everybody's on their own screen. Nobody sits down and says, let's watch a show together. Why do I have to watch your show? I don't care about that. It's everywhere. Like the choices are endless. It's crazy.
It is. If you look at that label though, John, I think one of the things you can say is they maybe have taken a little bit of a page from some of the smaller microbrew brands. It has a little bit more of that independent brand feel to it. It's less, you look at the original Genuine Draft label, it's glossy. You know what I mean? It's polished. It's very sharp. It's very clean. The new one is much more kind of renegade looking, much more little more in your face, a little more rough hewn maybe.
Well, and I think if you look at a lot of the seltzer brands coming out, it's almost like they wanted to keep their genuine beer. Miller wanted to keep their genuine beer draft, but fit in with the seltzer market, because a lot of those cans are black with like a bold yellow or a bold red.
Right.
I think they're kind of trying to compete with that trend, but also stick true to their roots, which may be difficult.
You gotta kind of pick. You have to kind of pick an audience, because you've got that microbrew audience, which is now most of the beer market or beverage market, and you've got the people that are kind of afraid to come out and say, I still like to get my Bud Light at the grocery store. Anybody. I don't want to get thrown out of my golf club or anything. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing to me. It's fascinating in and of itself. But to your point, Christoph, I mean, pick a segment, and it's all become so much more fractionalized. There's so many more choices of everything. Podcasts, I mean, live streams. I mean, it's you have so many choices in almost every area of consumable.
Do you think that makes brand more important or less important? Like, do you think that is the concept of brand loyalty going away because people are just kind of fraction? Or
well, it's interesting because there's some products I could care less if they have a good brand or not. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if I want plastic spoons, I'm going to buy whatever's in front of me, or
what's
whatever.
Cheapest.
Yeah, whatever. Or if I can order it cheap on Amazon, I'll probably order it on Amazon. But other things, it matters. And especially like in B2B, because the buying cycles are usually so long, you need to stay in front of people. I'll give you an example. I mean, like even my own content, I've worked with people last year that have followed me for like 10 years. And all of a sudden I got a big project with them. And they said, hey, we wouldn't have even talked to you if we didn't follow you for the last 10 years or whatever. I don't know how long it was, but it was years,
Right.
So it's, you got to stay in front of people. And then when they need help at some point, as you just saw with COVID, I mean, all of a sudden content is hot again. And when everybody was making boatloads of money, it's easy to ignore, right? Even though I think it was Matt Zucker. He wrote a really good book. Used to work at Ogilvy and other places, and writes for Forbes. And he said the best, and it's not his quote, but he quoted somebody who I don't remember who, and he says, basically the time to change and to evolve is when it's going great, not when it's going bad. So another example of why you need to be, creating that brand nonstop, especially when it's going well and you got some money to spend. Don't just
Mhm.
go on vacation
yeah.
8 times a
Yeah.
week.
You always find that
It's
there's
it
a lot of folks that are like, yeah, I got plenty of business. I don't really need need what you're doing or what. And we're like, yeah, but you're not doing anything. And we always talk
it's
about too, like some people like, what about recruitment? Like you need employees, right? I mean, there's other pieces to branding besides just selling you. You want people to work for you so that you can do
well, I
more
mean,
too.
it's just easier to maintain and build on momentum that
Mhm.
exists than try to create it from scratch.
Especially
Well,
during the pandemic.
exactly. And
Right.
the other thing people need to remember in companies, especially your company will have a brand, whether you work on it or not, right? So, I mean, there's companies I know and people think they have a horrible employee brand. And since the company doesn't, for example, participate in sharing their own stories, they don't hear anything,
Mm.
So I'll give you an example. So if I'm like, look, we're talking, it's really hard if I'm a jerk and I don't think I am, but if I was, really hard for me to fake being a nice guy for this length of a conversation, right? So, but again, if somebody says this dude is a jerk, well, just watch me on the show, like there's 5,000 examples where you can see me, and brands should do the same thing.
Mhm.
Just be out there, build your brand, be real, don't be a jerk or something else like that, and
Au-
be
Authentic,
authentic unless you're a jerk.
unless you're a jerk.
Well,
And yeah, that's
you can
I'm
authentically
sitting
be
there,
a jerk, I guess.
well, I'm sitting there thinking, I mean, and we talk about this all the time. We preach branding, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What is a brand? A brand is whatever the marketplace thinks it is. A brand's perception is its reality, right? No matter what, and we talk about this being inside the corporate bubble or inside the company bubble, whether you're a small company or a big company. And inside that bubble, you have a perception in your own mind of what your brand is. And you think that's the reality. And the reality is, no, it's what those other people outside, your brand is what they think it is. No matter what you say it is, it's what they think it is. That's, again, it goes, if you've got good, strong brand momentum, to your point, Christoph, it's not something you just let sit and go to seed. It's a wheel that's constantly turning, and you keep enacting energy. You keep putting energy to it to keep it moving, and adding it as you go to keep the correct perception in front of people.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
think
well,
the proof in the pudding, for a small business or a medium-sized business who hasn't really made branding a priority. I mean, if GM and Miller and Kia and Match.com and Post-it and these huge brands, I mean, they've all announced a rebrand within the last 3 months.
The CIA. That was the funniest one to me.
What is it?
Don't forget the CIA also rebranded.
Yeah, the CIA's even rebranding. So if they're doing it, they see the value of it, and they're investing big bucks in it.
Yeah.
There's supreme value in putting that brand as a priority, and it empowers everything. Like you were just saying, you can't have leads without a brand. You might get a few here and there, but you're not going to get anything consistent, and you're just going to spend money. If you're not doing branded content, you're just going to spend money on customer acquisition, doing paid media over and over and over, and there's no efficiency there. You're paying the same thing for every new customer. You're never getting ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well just buy a list if that's your strategy. And I was actually doing a thing yesterday in German, which is my native language, but I don't really speak German too often. So it went surprisingly well, in my opinion. But somebody said, should brands buy magazines? So Joe Polizzi says, brands, I don't remember him saying brands should buy magazines. I did write about and talk to him about brands should start magazines. So anyway, somebody said they should buy them. And I said, well, that's not a terrible idea. But why? Like, what are you trying to go after? Okay, you're after the subscribers. So then, okay, fair enough. So then my question is, dear magazine publisher, where did those subscribers come from? Because let's be honest, some B2B publishers, they built their little kingdom by buying lists, right? And yes, then they worked on building them up and moving them along, and now they feel like they're part of the community. But if they just bought a list, let's say it's a new publisher, like why do I need to buy them? I can just buy a list. if that's my plan. So just, something to keep in mind. The brand, you can actually influence your brand, right? Just by participating. And on the extreme, I actually had a CEO say to me one time, this is kind of awesome. People think I'm the expert because we say I am. And I said, well, that's probably a little crass the way you put that. Um, but yes, basically, because you're constantly showing your expertise, you're constantly out there sharing how to do it, what to do, what to think about, whatever. So it's a step above from just saying I'm the expert. You have to show it. But because you're constantly out there, so you can totally influence that brand, but you have to participate. You can't just sit in your corner and think everything will blow over.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Christoph, given everything we said here about having, maintaining momentum, staying in motion rather than just, looking at things from a campaign perspective, you're the live streaming expert. How does live streaming fit in, especially in this age of fragmented, we were just talking about fragmented segments and you have so many choices and things. How does live streaming fit in all of this?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, first of all, remember you made the comment earlier about everybody now has a podcast. There's so many podcasts,
mhm.
and it's taken back up again, right? It's picking back up, and I think that's great. But what happens is when most brands launch a podcast, they got 20 downloads, 30, if they're lucky, when they first start. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? That's kind of how it goes when we first start a new thing. And how do you set yourself apart? And what I found, and I love podcasting, and I've started with just talking to my phone. This having a mic in front of me is a brand new thing. Me putting the little cushy thing on the top. I just did that yesterday because I found it in my closet and I thought maybe it sounds better. And but guess what? It does. So I'm learning too, whether I'm an expert or not. I'm constantly evolving this whole thing. But what has happened is a lot of companies spend a lot of time building their social communities over the years, whether that's Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, you name it. And you can now live stream your show to all those channels. So what I'm saying is you already have them. Why are you building a completely new channel with the podcast? Which that's fine, do it. And like I just had a new show finally made on Apple. I mean, I immediately I celebrated that because it takes forever to get on there. But it's a new channel. You got to build it like any other channel. So if I take my podcast and I live stream it, I live stream to Amazon now, LinkedIn, Twitter, Periscope, YouTube. YouTube is not that important currently for the live, and Neil Schaefer told me it actually deprioritizes live streams in their algorithm.
Mhm.
But once you're done, you're no longer live, right? But you're still on YouTube. So I literally cut my workload, who knows, by an hour, right, or whatever. Then I go back in, I add a card, I trim the beginning, so you can do all that in there.
Yeah.
But you can reach all these people on all your channels. And now the other thing I just figured out how to do the other day too. See, I'm learning, and this is a chapter in the book now because I just added it because I know how to do it, is you can schedule your live stream. So what I do is in Restream, and there's plenty of other tools, but I use Restream, I use Switcher. You don't want to use them, use something else. I don't really care. But I use Restream, and you can schedule in there, and then it pushes the schedule to LinkedIn and YouTube already, and Facebook too. I don't use Facebook for anything right now, honestly, but if I were, and then it's there. And so like the other day, I think the show one of you guys mentioned earlier, yesterday, you know, it had like 300 views before we ever went live. Like people already, like the post. So you already reached more people. And then when it goes live, LinkedIn pushes it back to the top. So Facebook does the same thing. So what I'm saying is if you're going to take a time to do a podcast, good for you. Do it. But that's another way to get it in front of people.
Mhm.
And you guys are pretty good just chit-chatting here, right? But not everybody is that talented, honestly. Many people want to edit the crap out of everything. Oh my goodness, I sneezed or whatever. And on a live stream, you set the expectations. We're live. Like if you said it, I can't edit it. Sorry.
Right.
So it actually makes production easier because people have the expectation that you will not edit. Now I do edit the podcast a little bit, but I do produce real talk with Vox Pop Me, and the VP says to whoever she was talking to, "Yeah, we don't edit for stumbles. We only edit for technical issues," which is, it's kind of true. Like, I mean, if somebody says something really doesn't fit in the podcast, I'll edit it. But for the most part, you set the expectation that we're live, so
Right.
life means life. So yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've tried to do with this one here. I mean, NerdBrand was a podcast that started back in 2016, actually. And it was a bit of a different vibe. It's between another friend of mine, and he and I, we wanted to talk about like how things were branded. Like, you can look at like the movies back then that came out over the 10 years of Marvel Cinematic Universe alone gave us a catalog of things to discuss. And, that's what we did for about 2 years, and then kind of stopped doing it, and then kind of picked it back up with this. And now it's a little bit of a different show than it was then, obviously, because, I've got two other folks in the company. It's a different company. All that said, we started out with, on my phone using the Anchor app. And this podcast is, we put it on Anchor. And we do, of course, there's an ad that appears before the show, and that's just the audio version. The moving to YouTube was, well, we got Zoom, and it's a pandemic. Likelihood we tried to get into a room together. We do have the ability to do that, but as things just kept happening, I just felt like, it's not worth it. This is suiting just fine, and it kind of saves a lot of time too, because there's more on the time given to the content of the show, sourcing guests, that kind of a thing going on, promoting the show after it's launched. All of that gave more energy and time to that, rather than trying to figure out, the video engineering aspect of things and how to produce it. Like, definitely cuts down on that. And I've seen that with live streaming where, yeah, it's done. It's there. So, and then YouTube has done a really great job, I think, with editing tools. I've actually looked at them, and I'm doing what you're doing right now. I'm just going in there and I'm like, okay, what can I do with this that I'm not doing with something like iMovie, for example, something as dumb and simple as iMovie, and so our editor, she uses After Effects. She'll take that iMovie file. If I export that out through that, she'll like pop that into After Effects, add the place cards and things like that, export that thing out, and then we upload it to YouTube. It's not really a secret sauce type of thing that we're doing. We're not really doing anything that's really advanced, right? All the tools are there for everybody to use. You just have to jump in and do it. Don't worry about it doing it well for now. Just do it. Just get into it.
That's the amazing thing about this era we're in, and that's the fact that you have these tools so readily available to use. I mean, to your point, I mean, you have no excuse for not at least trying something, and there's no harm in trying. So, okay, you do it a few times and nobody watches for a while. It's going to take, trial and error and practice to get a rhythm down, to get a format down and things like that. But it's almost like, duh, you're almost dumb not to be doing it, either whether a live stream or a podcast. I mean, in my mind, it's like maybe podcasting is your training wheels, and live streaming is moving up to a big boy bike. You know what I mean? The thing that I think is cool about live streaming is it's the, again, to my brand authenticity. It's authentic. It's real. You can't really, I mean, you can't go back and edit, which gives you the ability to sort of fake things a little bit. I mean, it's still real, but when you edit it, you've taken some of that immediacy out of it, that you've taken the moment experience out of it. So that, to me, that's kind of the fascinating prospect of live streaming, is that this is happening right now. This is real. This is uncut.
Yeah. Well, I mean, short from live streaming, I mean, I took my inspiration from, as I've said, like Kevin Smith and Joe Rogan. I mean, the godfathers of podcasting, for crying out loud. You look at how they do it. Yeah, they've got the mics, the equipment, the setup. They've got personnel that's working with them to run those things. And they can, because they've been doing it for so long, and many aren't there, and you don't need to wait to get those things to begin. But when I look at like Joe Rogan, it's just 1, 2, 3, go. And then when you're done talking, you're done. And that's it. End of show. I mean, you couldn't get a more simple formula, and that's all there is to it. Kevin Smith, his formula is a little different. Of course, he's been on several different podcasts. I mean, I don't think he's doing Hollywood Babylon much anymore. I don't think that's been going for many, many months now. And they would do that one live on an audience in a comedy club, and they broadcast that. So that requires different kinds of equipment. They'd have tripods and cameras, and just you got to have some different stuff. So you got some studio equipment involved, basically, and so there's all kinds of ways of doing it. But now when what I see them doing, they're all doing it with tools that are available for anyone to use.
It's true, but people always, not always, but a lot of times people make it so difficult, and they say, oh, I can't do it because I don't have the right tools. And I'm telling you, my first podcasts, they were my phone.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it was kind of funny because people would be like, where's the mic on my phone? And it's right underneath. So if you're recording a podcast, the best way is actually to flip it around and hold it in the other person's face. Mitch, I do think that's quotable. I'd love to put that in the book. You're almost dumb not to do it. Podcasting is the training wheels. Live streaming is moving to the big boy bike.
My agent will be in touch.
You'll be in touch? Okay.
Yeah, my agent will be in touch. No, I mean, I don't, sure.
That's a great quote. I love it. I think it's fantastic. So what's interesting about that quote, actually? Well, you let me know later. I don't want to step on your agent's toes. I was going to give it to you for free. Typically, I charge people to be quoted, but there you go. We can play the hard game. So
well, I'm in such demand these days. I just,
Yeah.
Feel free.
So I don't know what I was going to say now, but what's interesting about that is, I don't remember what I was going to say, but honestly, think about it. It is kind of true, right? Because podcasting, you have to build it from scratch, and people will listen. But the live streaming goes to your existing audience. Now, what's interesting is, don't be so afraid of making mistakes. I'll give you an example. Did anybody catch the mistake I made when we first started? Happened within the first 3 minutes. So if you look at me now, you will no longer be able to tell the mistake. Do you know what it was? It's on screen. You don't even,
You got an order now on your call to action there. I see it.
I don't know if that may have been on there before.
No, I think that was there. Okay.
I don't know.
Just like I Spy. I don't know.
I don't know if that was on there before or not.
Where's Wallow?
Yeah. That was there before. So nobody in the world agrees on how to spell live stream. Nobody agrees. Some hyphenated, some make it 2 words. AP says 1 word. So the first version of my book, I had it hyphenated because I got that stupid red squiggly line. And then my editor says, I don't care if you get a squiggly line. We're doing AP style. It's 1 word. Now I got a pillow where it's hyphenated. The previous background had it hyphenated. I'm like, oh crap. I'll just update it quick. So my point is, you guys didn't even catch it. I caught it. Right. So, and it was almost in the same spot, the image, like it's slightly different. But my point is, don't sweat making mistakes. I'm on live streams all the time and I go, oh, hold on a second. I don't find the button. Where's the graphic or whatever? Who cares? They know it's just me talking. Yesterday, I'm doing a live stream with like 6 people. And I put myself on mute, because I'm coughing or whatever. And then I start talking and I'm on mute. And they all go, dude, you're on mute. And I come back on and I said, man, where did they find this guy? Can't even unmute himself, to speak. So you just roll with it. Who cares if you are on mute? You don't have to feel bad about it. Something happens, just roll with it. And Jason Falls reminds me, he of course is a fantastic podcaster and live streamer as well, who kind of put me up to the whole multi-stream live stream about a year or so ago. And he said there's 47 dominoes that have to fall, and most of them are out of your control. Like your internet, I mean, think about this show. We got 4 people. We got 4 different internet providers, probably, or internet outputs or whatever,
Mhm.
right? Then you have to record. If we were live streaming, it goes from one thing to another thing to another thing to 5 other things. I mean, there is like all these things that can go wrong. Like, get off my back, relax. You know,
That's me. I have to
stuff
try
can happen.
I have to try to mute strategically on my side because I've got 2 kids downstairs screaming, and then I'm on a busy road, so there's constantly trucks and cars honking, and I'm like, on one hand, for the sake of the listener and the audio, the distraction, I'll try to hit it, but I also, Jason, I've kind of given up on.
Well, there's not been anything catastrophic. I mean, there is a point of you do want to have good audio, but the way these mics are, I mean, they pick up really well. Like, you don't really need to sweat to the point here. You don't really need to sweat that too much. I mean, mobile devices are really good for audio and video as well, by the way. You just need to be able to have something that can stabilize the video if you're going to walk around, which you can get a gimbal. That's, they're not, I guess, depending on your point of view, not cheap, but worth it. And you can get yourself a setup. I wish I had it here with me so I could show you guys, but I do have something that has like a mic that kind of plugs into the phone so you can actually carry it around and shoot. So there's all kinds of ways to do video and ways to do podcasting. A few weeks ago, Mitch and I, we were talking about doing video because John did something in where he's at. We thought it was really cool. You have video that's over the top, kind of pointing directly down on the object. And, how do you do that? And people will think like, oh, I need this kind of camera. I need this kind of setup and this kind of lighting. It's like, oh, no, you don't. You need like $40 of equipment that you can buy on Amazon and your phone.
What's interesting, Christoph, you're talking about the fear of making mistakes and things, but people are now so accustomed to being in Zoom meetings and things like that, where Lord knows there's horror stories about things that have happened in Zoom meetings for folks. I think people are a little desensitized now I mean, I don't think they worry about that stuff.
No, it's like playing an instrument. It's like, when we play, at least this is what I learned when playing an instrument. And Mitch is a musician, and so is John. And so,
well, using the term loosely.
Yeah, but still, a lot of people don't know if you're making a boo-boo when you're playing. They don't. Like for all they know, you're riffing, or that, only another musician is going to listen to that and go, whoa, that was not the right chord. But at the end of the day, unless you're doing like a Marty McFly in Back to the Future, where you just go from like Johnny Be Good to like Metallica, I mean, nobody's really going to pick up on that. So just keep going. And even like you said, Christoph, to your point, use it. Even if you did go from, Johnny Be Good to Metallica, just use it. Just be like, we're going to do that. There's a segue. Har.
And the other thing too, what you got to remember is, depending where you live stream, longer live streams perform better, right? So I'll give you an example. And this is a little bit off topic from my book, because the book is really about going live for podcasters. But of course, now I'm trying other kinds of live streams. By the way, there's like a whole book to be written about live streaming in general, not just podcasting, but some of the tips in there you can use as just a general live streamer. So now I'm trying other things. I live stream my daughter's basketball games with 2 cameras. By camera, I mean iPhone on one end, iPad on the other. That's it, right? And then I flip back and forth between them. Now we have a robot vacuum cleaner. And so I put my phone on top of the vacuum cleaner when it drives around the house. And then I live stream that to Amazon. The one this morning. That's his dolly. Yeah, basically, right? And it just drives around. And this morning I did that, and it had like 3,500 people watching. And some of them comment, and they say, this is so captivating. And it just finished, a cleaning cycle. So I go, well, I suppose we can do one more. And they go, okay, well, just one more. And 3,500 people are watching that robot vacuum cleaner driving around the house. And, so there you go. 10% conversion rate to clicks. I mean, how many campaigns do you know that have that? Right. So anyway, so it's passive income. That's nuts. While the house getting cleaned by somebody else. Then I do this sometimes. I just have a live stream rolling. So for example, I'm working and I got this set up, right? I got a ring light, I got a 4K camera now, I got this microphone, I got my iPad, my computer, my screen. And I put a camera, I got the one in front of me, I put my iPhone behind me, and I just stream that on 2 screens. Or sometimes I have them rotate and I push it to Amazon. And yesterday, I don't remember how many there were. I want to say like 4,000. That might be a little high, but in the thousands for sure. And I wasn't doing anything. I was working. And every once in a while, somebody would go, "How do you like that chair?" I got this gaming chair, right? You can barely see it, but
I've seen bits of it. I've noticed it. It's
So
not on
I-
the chair.
I got that. Hold on. I got the gaming chair right here. You can see, and there's actually the robot vacuum cleaner behind me and on the floor charging. And so what happens is, see, that's the wrong one. Boom. So every once in a while, somebody will say, "Hey, how do you like that chair?" I say, "I love it. It's great. I hardly ever stand up, and I got a Veridesk, So all those things people can click on and buy, and they do them, but I'm not really doing anything other than working.
Yeah.
So my point is, if that actually works, that people watch me work or watch my vacuum cleaner clean, you don't need to overthink what you're going to talk about. Just don't be dull. Just don't be annoying. If you think you don't have anything to say, think about it this way. You will be more entertaining than a vacuum cleaner driving around my house. And you can't even see my house. You can barely see, you know what I mean? It's like every once in a while I got a video friend of mine message me and say, tilt up. And I'm like, I don't want to. I want to just show a little piece of my house, not my whole house.
Yeah.
So like you can really not even see anything other than the space directly in front of the vacuum cleaner and a little bit of the vacuum cleaner, so you can kind of get the, dare I say, mood.
Well,
you like showed
you-
your space in your setup. Our web developer, Laura, she's got a setup that I swear is fitting for the Bat Cave. Not just because of the amount of monitors, it's the chair that she uses, that she can also it's not just a chair, it's kind of she can lean in a way. I don't know. It's therapeutic for her, but at the end of the day, I mean, she's got a crazy setup. She showed me a picture of it, and I keep meaning to we got to put that on here so people can see that.
Yeah, I want to see that. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah. Oh, it's nuts what she's got. I mean, people think that web developers are kind of like Batman in the Batcave. We got all these screens, and in some ways, yeah, we may have one or two monitors in front of us working, but she's definitely taken ownership of that.
I mean, what this all proves, Christoph, is, I mean, content is king.
Mhm.
It almost doesn't matter what kind of content. It's just people both from the business and from a non-business side, are craving things to something new and different to listen to, watch, especially watch.
Well, that's how we're learning from each other. I mean, like I said, I'm learning or learned into this too with Joe Rogan and with Kevin Smith and other people. I look at what they're doing and I'm like, okay, I understand perspective and expectations. I don't have thousands of dollars for that equipment, but I don't need that. I just need to get started, and if you're not just getting started, then, you're not doing it. I keep thinking about earlier how you mentioned like talking with the CEO, and I've mentioned here on the show before, like the way branding and things are going now, people want to kind of know the person that is or in that chair. And we've talked with people before where they're like, well, I'm not very personable. I'm not very, entertaining or whatever. And you just brought up this great example of a vacuum cleaner. And it's like, if that can work, then you don't need to be the CEO or person that's in your organization that's the front of the brand that's, look at me, kind of a thing. You don't need to be that kind of a person. You can just be you. And that's what we want with a lot of the customers we work with. We want to help bring that out and show that authenticity through creative branding. And that's kind of like one of our core missions. So anyways, anybody got anything else they kind of want to share really quickly?
All of that said, Christoph, is there anything on a production side or like a planning side for a live stream that is extra beyond a podcast, or like kind of baseline tips for people who are planning to go live?
Yeah.
Get started.
It's a good question. So it always depends how you currently plan your podcast, right? So I do like to just kind of go, but I always have a little bit of an outline, and it's really the same format every time, you know, a little bit of just introduction. What are we talking about? Blah, blah, blah. Dive in, summary, and then we finish it up. So as long as you do that already, it's very similar on a live stream as well. The other thing to keep in mind is you don't need to breathe through things. Take your time. I started doing the countdown timer now, you know. The other day I was giving it on Amazon, I was giving away gift cards. So I had a countdown timer every 30 minutes or whatever. And in between, I wasn't doing anything other than hanging out. So you do want to make sure you know what you're going to talk about, you know what you're going to do, how long it's going to be, and especially think about how you're going to repurpose it, right? Because some stuff, so in on the easiest side, really just do your podcast live. That's really the easiest way to do it. But now I'm kind of doing other things, you know, and sometimes they're not as easy to repurpose because if I'm just hanging out and I have a podcast in the middle, now I got to find the middle when I'm editing it. So it's like I'm creating more work for myself. So think about those things. But to get started, just do your podcast live and pick the different channels. And I would go to all the different channels. I would give that a try, see what works, see what doesn't work, and go from there. Technology wise, it's really no different. I mean, you do need a decent camera. I mean, you can see the difference, right? If I were to turn the light off, it's a lot, it's not quite as bright. And the camera is pretty nice now. So, but again, when I first started, I was just using my iPad. So don't let that stop you either. And you know, figure out what you're comfortable with. If you're producing your own show, I find that extremely difficult, honestly, to be the host and to produce it, which means I got you guys flying in, I got the lower thirds coming in and other stuff, and I got a video at the beginning, you know, like it's a lot, like it's a lot. So if you have somebody who can help you with that, I would recommend that. And if you don't, just roll with it. I say it all the time. I'm like, oh my goodness, wrong button. That's not the right person. That's not you. You know? So fixed. And that's okay. It happens.
It's the quality of the content. It's not the quality of the performance, I think is part of what you're saying here. As long as you're talking about something or presenting something that people are going to be interested in, it's going to be engaging. All the other stuff going on around it is far less important, I think.
And also just kind of roll with it. Like, so for example, when I've put up before, I don't do it on purpose, obviously, but every once in a while it happens. I push the wrong lower third, you know, for the wrong guest. I'm like, oh, that's not you. That was yesterday's guest. However, that conversation was really interesting. And if you missed it, you know, so like I just like, you know, use that again to remind people. So yeah, just kind of roll with it, share what you have to share, be useful, be halfway entertaining, and you know, move forward.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking forward to this one here to talk about live streaming because I know that as things continue to progress, it's going to move that way. Live is going to become more and more and more of a thing, and hopefully not treated as a gimmick for some. But you know, like you said, like at least you're doing it, but it's all about the content. So I kind of want to take a bit of the time as we start to wrap up here. Like, do you want to plug where they can find your book, where you plan on putting it, your website, anything you'd like to share with the audience really quickly about that?
Yeah, of course. And really quickly, I want to mention that it's not just about the live, but it's also about the replays, right? Once you go off air, it's still available. So I have a lot of people watching the show after the fact as well. The book, of course, is available everywhere. It is on Amazon.com. You can pre-order it depending on when the show comes out. Kindle, paperback. There's also a podcast version. I'm not a big fan of reading books to anybody. If you want to read them yourself. Don't listen to me. But I do have a podcast where I literally walk through every chapter and I basically talk about the chapter and give you some other ideas. And it's pretty close to what the chapter is about, but I'm not reading it to you for the most part. So you can check that out. It's just a going live podcast with Christoph Trappe. So, you know, it's available, all those different things.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's going to pretty much wrap us up. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I do want to give as much to you to promote yourself and talk about what you're doing. And I'm hoping that as people are listening, watching this, they'll join us over at nerdbrandagency.com/podcast, and they'll find the show there with links. Got us on Google Podcasts. I will admit that is a lot harder than it sounds. Either I was really doing something really wrong or it wasn't really going, but we are there now. We've been on Spotify and iTunes for quite a while, and now Spotify owns Anchor.fm. So yeah, they're taking some of that. I don't know. Well, actually, they gave Joe Rogan money, so I don't know. Maybe they're making some Joe Rogan money, so they're making some acquisitions.
When did that happen? Because I just visited their website not too long ago, and I saw that tagline underneath the Anchor logo.
Yeah, that happened about well, I'm sure the deal's been in the works for a while, but I noticed it when I've got the Anchor app on my phone, and it updated, and it's a new icon, and it was like a squiggly line now. And I was like, what's that? What's going on? So I went to the website to look at our actual page, because we do have I think it's anchor.fm/nerdbrand if you want to visit the actual podcast page, channel, if you will. And so that's when I started noticing it. And that was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So,
yeah, it had to be recent.
Yeah, it's very, very recent. But yeah, I mean, like we talked about on the show, podcasting is going pretty strong. So if any of our listeners out there, if you got questions about podcasting, you want to know more about it, reach out to Christoph on those channels that he mentioned. You can reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you about it just to get started. We hope that you've enjoyed the show. Christoph, thank you for being on here with us and taking time.
Yeah. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Gary. It's always great to chat with you and listen to your show. The last couple, especially, I enjoyed them very much.
Yeah, we're hopefully getting better at it ourselves. We're in the midst of, running an agency and doing projects and everything like that. So, doing this show is kind of in a way for us on a Friday is a nice release valve for the week to kind of like, we enjoy this as much as we hope people enjoy listening and enjoy it as well. So, but
no reason to hedge it. You're doing great, and 1% improvement every week.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
All right. Well, 1% improvement every week. That's the goal that we all should go for. So with that said, sir, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for all our listeners. And remember, keep your nerd brand strong.